Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. I don't know if you can hear me or if you're even there. I don't know if you would listen to the Brent Dodge here. Yes, I know it's just a Wednesday. It doesn't mean much to you. But if you join us right here, there's so many things you never knew. You never knew. Come join us Wednesday. It will be fun. And if you don't think so, then go for a run. I'm just going to keep on singing until we have people stopping in the chat room. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing out there? We do have people in the chat room. Now it says, how's everybody doing? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there. We have started the vote. I don't know if it's on my page. It's right here. It might be down here for you guys. I'm not sure. But for me, it's right over here. On which you would like the topic for tonight to be. We got Retire Distraction, Ask the Expert, Connect the Dots, or Take a Hike as our options this evening. So start throwing those votes down. I do like the fact that we can actually throw the vote thing up here. I think it makes it a little bit more exciting, or at least it makes it a little bit more logical, because in the past, people would be putting down 2 to 3 answers opposed to just one answer. So if you're just one of those people joining us right now, throw what you would like tonight's episode to be about, and we will go through whatever you guys vote on. Right now, it looks like Retired Attraction is in the lead with every single one of the votes. But while we do this, how's everyone doing out there? Is everyone doing well? Hopefully everyone's doing well. No one's typing. It's showing that we have people watching. It doesn't show that we've got people typing, though. So if you're one of the people out there who want to type away. Connect the Dots now, 50%, 50%. Retired Attraction and Connect the Dots are right now the 2 front runners for our potential episode tonight. Maybe am I just missing the chat room? No, I'm not missing the chat room. No one's talking. People are voting, but they're not talking. If people aren't talking, the Connect the Dots will definitely not be the one that we want to go with, because that requires you guys to do a lot of typing out there. Okay, so hello, just saw Freakier Friday. It was really good. I literally just got out of Freakier Friday too. I just got out of the 7 o'clock to 8 or 9 o'clock viewing. I went over with the D23 event here at Disney Springs. I'm actually going to be doing a video after this, but I literally got home at 9:23, so 10 minutes ago right now, and I had to go through and get everything ready. But I really liked it too. Freakier Friday was really good. Last night I did watch the original Freaky Friday from 2003, and I'm extremely happy that I did, because there were so many different callbacks to the original that I don't know if I would have remembered all those different callbacks. So I'm glad that I went through and rewatched it. So if you're one of those people out there who is going to be watching Freakier Friday this coming up weekend, I highly, highly, highly recommend renewing everything and watching the original, because there's a lot of callbacks, but it was a really funny. Do I like this one more? I think I like this one more than I like the original. I think I'd only seen the original one time ever before this, which was in 2003. I vividly remember going to see it at Marcus Hillside Theater up in Wisconsin back in 2003. And I remember enjoying it. I remember not thinking it's the greatest movie of all time, but at the same time, I enjoyed it enough that I was excited for Freakier Friday to show up, and Freakier Friday showed up, and it was a good movie. Okay, so let's get this party started. We're going to start the 833rd episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 833rd episode of the Wednesday show. Today is August 6th. Holy cow, we are in August 2025, and I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. Today we're going to be going through and doing the topic that you guys choose. Right now, you guys are in the poll, or we got a little voting thing going on for what topic you want to have. It's in the chat room, so if you want to have it so your thing is chosen, make sure you throw your vote in there as well. Looks like right now we might be doing a retired attraction though. So keep on voting, and we will be going to one of yours in the very near future here. But of course, before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. First off, thank you everyone out there who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You never know where we're coming to you from, but I promise you we will always be coming to you live from Disney. So make sure you join us every single Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. This coming up Saturday, I can't even think what my park reservation is going to be. This past Saturday, where we were at. Oh, we went over and we did Star Wars Launch Bay, and we met Darth Vader. It was fun. If you didn't think so, well, I'm sorry. As we go through here tonight, too, we're going to be trying to increase our number of subscribers as we go tonight. And right now, we are starting off at 8,771 subscribers. So as always, if that number goes up as we go through here, we will go into extra innings. So send a friend or two, or 1,229. So we reach that 10,000 mark. And of course, as always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our wonderful, our super duper, our always amazing Patreon pals. If you're one of our Patreon pals out there in the chat room right now, give us an oh yeah. Patreon pals, they make the world go round. Okay, so we got some. Did you see the D23 event, Frank Fam? No, we are in East Orlando and saw it at a fan fest event at Regal. Ooh, was that the? Did you guys go to the double feature one? I got an invite about a week ago for Fandango. Had a they had a special back-to-back Freaky Friday followed by Freakier Friday event going on at several different theaters around the country, and I was thinking about doing that, but I also knew that the D23 one was probably going to be coming up pretty soon, and that it probably would have been better to try to get in for free, because the other one you had to pay like $30 for, $40 for, and I was like, I don't want to spend money on a movie that I can watch at home. So unless it was like Star Wars or Peter Pan or Herbie the Love Bug or a lot of other movies, but Freaky Friday, I don't need to watch that in the theater. But Freakier Friday, I highly recommend. If you guys have not gone to see it yet, which I think not many of you guys probably have because it's not even out yet, I highly recommend going and check it out. Okay, so it is time to wrap up our poll for this evening. We have it so 0% of you want to have it so you ask me questions tonight. No things for Ask the Expert. We had 17% of you guys wanted to take a hike, 17% of you wanted to connect the dots, and 67% wanted to do a retired attraction. So tonight's episode is going to be a retired attraction episode. But to make things a little bit more interesting, I'm going to give you 3 more options and let you guys choose on which one of these retired attractions you would like to do. So, wait a minute, which one? Okay. No, wait. Yes or no? No, not yes or no. Let's do this one because that was a great one. Let's do. Should we do that one? It won't let me type that many words. Okay, let's do it that way. Or let's do one more. It's terrible that now we could actually put in things like Tom Sawyer Island, but we're not going to put Tom Sawyer Island. We're also not going to put in the Libertyville Riverboat because we just did massive episodes about both of those in recent weeks. So instead, I'm going to give you a third option that I'm trying to figure out what the third option should be. No, yes, maybe, no. I'm going through my head. We did the not too long ago. We did an entire episode about the Studio Backlot Tour, and I was thinking the Studio Backlot Tour would be a fun one, but we just recently did that one. So I'm trying to think of like really cool, unique opening day attractions or old attractions that used to be at Magic Kingdom right now, and all the ones that I can think of, I don't know if I could do a full episode about. because I'm thinking like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but there's not a whole lot to talk about, or the Skyway, which there's not a whole lot to talk about. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, a little bit more to talk about, but oh, I know what we're gonna do. Oh wait, your three options. Choose which one you want to have it. So tonight's episode is going to be about. We can do an episode about the Great Movie Ride, about the original Journey into Imagination with Figment Attraction, or our final one is Snow White's Scary Adventures. You guys, we're giving you about a minute and a half here to throw your votes in. Whichever one is in the lead after that minute and a half will be the topic of conversation this lovely, lovely evening. Also, I'm looking at, so 833, what is... Let's what is 834 divided by 52?
834 divided by 52 is approximately 16.04.
Okay, so that's kind of what I was thinking. What's 833 divided by 52?
833 divided by 52 is approximately 16.02.
So tonight is our 16-year anniversary of the Wednesday show. Mainly due to the fact the way that math kind of maths, because wow. I was like, I know it was August 13th, roughly. It was like August 12th, August 13th, somewhere around there was the first episode ever of the Wednesday show. But yeah, apparently we're hitting a milestone tonight. It is the Wednesday show can officially now drive, which blows my mind. Also, speaking about blowing my mind, we also had the Great Movie Ride just completely swept our things. So tonight's episode is going to be all about the Great Movie Ride. 16 years. Wow. All right, let's talk about the Great Movie Ride. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a little bit of the backstory. We've talked about the backstory quite a bit with the Great Movie Ride, but instead of going into full in-depth conversation about the backstory, which we have covered countless times before, then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and do a pretty massive walkthrough of the entire attraction. After we go through the entire attraction, then what we'll do is we will kind of talk about some of the details and fun facts that can still be found to this day about the Great Movie Ride. I think we can do the Great Movie Ride script. I'm fairly certain that I've got the most of it down. I'm almost positive. So let's do this, people. We are going to do a flashback. And by the way, okay. So, wow, 16 years is crazy. Isn't that crazy? 16 years ago this week, we first started doing this little Wednesday show, and it spawned a lot of different things throughout the time. But one of the very first episodes we ever did of the Wednesday show was actually about the Great Movie Ride. So this is kind of perfect timing. So let's do this thing, people. We're going to start the 833rd episode right now about the Great Movie Ride. Okay, so we've gone through the backstory of the Great Movie Ride multiple times in the past on how it actually landed itself at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And not only did it land itself at Disney's Hollywood Studios, all of Disney's Hollywood Studios, or Disney MGM Studios as was known at the time, completely was revolved around the fact that the Great Movie Ride was a thing. Let me explain. So back in the 1980s, Epcot was doing pretty darn well. And while they were going through and trying to figure out brand new things to bring over to Epcot, the Imagineers were saying, I think we need a new pavilion. We need to have it so we can add more things here. So they kept on adding and subtracting, but mainly adding different things over to Epcot to enhance the experience of when you go over there, there's different things to do, different things to see, and a lot of fun had all around. And while they were going through and trying to figure out exactly what to add in to Epcot, one of the Imagineers, along with Michael Eisner, who was the CEO at the time, they were starting to come up with this idea of having an entire pavilion based around the making of a movie. They called it the Great Movie Ride. So you would go into a pavilion and there'd be a whole movie making pavilion. And then in the center of it all was going to be a great movie ride that would take you through the different historic moments of the movies. Now, when they came to Michael Eisner about this idea, he said, that is a great idea. However, it shouldn't be a ride. It should be its own entire park. So they came up with the idea of the Great Movie Ride in its own entire park. So the idea of Disney MGM Studios was bursted out of that simple little idea of this great movie ride. Now, the Great Movie Ride originally was just going to take guests through the history of the movies. You would start off with some older movies, and then as time would go on, you'd slowly start making your way to the most recent ones. Now, they quickly realized that that was not the greatest idea in the world because, yes, you could go through the history of the movies, but eventually it's just going to end and it's not going to be as exciting as maybe finishing up at a more glorious finale. Things like maybe The Wizard of Oz, something that most people know and love. So when they're going through and trying to figure out exactly the way to structure this whole thing, they came across one problem, and it was a pretty big problem. Now, Disney had been in the movie making business since 1923 when they first had the Alice cartoons, then Oz with the Lucky Rabbit, then Mickey Mouse, Tilly Symphonies, etc., 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 and it all snowballed from there. However, when you go through the history of Disney and you look at all their Oscar nominated films, well, when it comes to full length films, at that point, there was one. There was Mary Poppins, and that was about it. There was not a lot of other significant Disney live action films. However, let's be honest here, Candle Shoe exists, and Candle Shoe is the bee's knees of all movies. But even though you have great films like Candle Shoe and Snowball Express and Herbie the Love Bug. This has just become about all the movies that I love. But you have all these great Disney live action films, but when you go to the general public, most people didn't really know these great Disney films. Instead, when you ask the common person, hey, what's your favorite Disney film? At that point, they would probably say things like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Dumbo, Mary Poppins. And there was not a lot of other things that really stood out outside of the animation world. So, what Disney decided to do was they decided to start going through and talking to other studios and saying, hey, you know what? If you don't have a movie or a theme park contract, we can make a theme park contract with you. So they started to reach out to different companies as well around the world to try to find a company that had a diverse library of films that most people knew. And with that diverse library, they could merge it together and create not just the great movie ride, but an entire theme park. Now, at the same time, there's this little place down the road called Universal Studios that was going through, and they said, hey, you know what we should do is we should also create our own theme park. So they're kind of going into this huge competition with one another. And Disney said, you know what, we can't contact Universal, even though that was one of the people they were considering contacting. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to contact another big name. We're going to contact MGM Studios. So they contacted MGM Studios, and when they contacted them, they said, hey, what's up? It's us, Disney. And they were like, yo, Disney, what's up? That's how people talked in the late 80s, in case you didn't know. I grew up in that time period, so I know, but you probably didn't know that. But anyways, so they're like, yo, what's up? So while these two people were talking in just complete nonsense, greeting each other with whatsapps, they started to come to the contract that, hey, you know what we can do is we can create a brand new studio theme park. And in this brand new studio theme park, yes, we will lend you all of our films. And you can use all of these films with the exception of a few. But with the exception of a few, you can use all our films and you can make amazing attractions based around those films. And you can also have it so you have attractions that feature those films as well. So with this, they were greenlit and they said, haha, we are now going to create the Disney MGM Studios. Now, while they're going through and creating Disney MGM Studios, there was a few hiccups along the way. Number one, Disney was still under construction. However, they decided to start using the studio as a studio, which made MGM mad because they said, hey, now you're making a profit off of the studio, but we're not making any profits whatsoever. So they opened up the park a little bit earlier than they originally planned to with 3 attractions. Now, those 3 attractions would be the Magic of Disney Animation, the Studio Backlot Tour, and of course, the thing that started off the entire thing of all, the Great Movie Ride. Now, with the Great Movie Ride, they were using both Disney films along with MGM films with a few other films as well, but we're going to get into that in a few minutes as well here. But they combined all of these different things to create a masterpiece of an attraction. Still, to this day, I think is one of the best attractions that Disney's ever created, and they called it the Great Movie Ride. They decided to put it inside the Grauman Chinese Theater in the central section of the entire park. It was going to be the main attraction, the signature attraction. If you are going to go to Disney MGM Studios, you better go on the Great Movie Ride. Now, not only were they going to have it so it was going to be interactive, but they decided to do something in all of the different attractions around the park that made it more unique compared to the other parks. Now, if you were over in Epcot back in the 1980s, you would be able to go on different attractions that were similar to Living with the Land, Listen to the Land, actually. And while you're on this attraction, you used to have a tour guide in the front. Actually, they still had the tour guide up until about 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. And they would have a tour guide up there. It's like, oh, if you look up here, we got bananas. Bananas are delicious. They always have to split. They would not make stupid jokes. I would just make the stupid jokes for them. And you would go through and you'd have the tour guide and they would be pointing out all of the different fruits. Who remembers that? Does anyone remember that? Hands up in the chat room. But eventually they would replace that with the speaker that we all know and love today, but that's besides the point. So with the idea of having that speaker there, it caused a little bit more interaction between the guest and the cast members, and it allowed them to have a more fluent story from start to finish with a person pointing it out. So when they created Disney MGM Studios, they decided not only we're going to create Disney MGM Studios, but we're going to have it so every single attraction in Disney MGM Studios on opening day is going to have that kind of interactivity there with you. So we had things like over the magic of Disney animation, you could have it so an animator taught you how to draw. Ooh, interactivity. If you went over to the studio backlot tour, you had a person who was there going through and giving the whole spiel. Interactivity. And then if you went on the Great Movie Ride, you would have not just one, but two different hosts on the attraction. Say it with me, class. Interactivity. Okay, so while we were going to have all these different interactivity, we are going to have to give a great storyline that doesn't just take people through the movies, but we can also have it so this attraction is going to have it so guests can interact with the movies. They can be immersed in the movies, and they can have it so it all connects and it all makes sense on why it connects through ever. So while they're going through and having it so all of these films are coming together and creating a brand new attraction, they still had a few different things that they needed to do. Number one, they decided that, hey, even though we love all the MGM films, there are still a few other classic films that we want to bring to life in both animatronic form and on the big screen form. So what Disney decided to do is they decided to contact a few more major studios. So now we have Disney, we also have MGM. They also contacted Paramount. With Paramount, they said, hey, you know what? We really like that Raiders of the Lost Ark film. Can we bring that in here? They said, absolutely not. And they said, please. And they said, absolutely. So then they, that's not how it went. It was just like, oh yeah, sure, go for it. So they started to go through and contact people like Paramount. Universal used a few of the clips, or Universal gave them a few clips for the montage at the end of the film to really bring together the idea that not only are movies amazing, but movies are universal in every way, shape, and form. And whether you are from one company or another company or another company, all of these films can come together because everyone just loves going to the movies and watching stories unfold on the big screen, as Nicole Kidman always tells us at the AMC theaters. It's like the lights are flickering on the big screen, and for a moment, we are together. That's how she talks in the film. I don't know all the words to it, but that's how it goes. Anyways, so they have decided that the Great Movie Ride is going to be one and only the massive signature attraction of this entire thing. But in order for us to go through it, we have to go through and talk about the queue itself. So when they went through the queue and the guests went through the queue, they decided that they're going to have a rotating museum. Now, a few of these museum artifacts, and literally when I say museum artifacts, I really mean these are actual museum artifacts. So these were going to be lent out by the different studios. So over at MGM, we got the red ruby glass slippers that Dorothy actually wore, or Judy Garland actually wore, in The Wizard of Oz. From Lucasfilm / Paramount, we got the Ark of the Covenant from the Raiders of the Lost Ark. We also had Disney donating things like the Mary Poppins stuff. So in addition to this, there's also one more thing that I forgot to talk about. So let's just go outside again, because this is actually still a fun fact that you can find to this very day at the Grauman Chinese Theater over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. On the left and the right hand side of the theater, when you are facing it, you can find windows on both sides. When you look at those windows on both sides, you can go inside. No, you can't go inside the window, but you can go up to the window and you can take a look inside and see what's inside there. On one side, we've got the parking pass, we've got the tickets, we've got all of the different events for Mary Poppins. Why? Because Mary Poppins actually made its debut at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. On the other side, we've got another window display, and at this window display, we have also the parking pass, the press pass, the invitation, and all that other fun stuff for the Jungle Book, yet another Disney film that made its debut at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. Now, there was not a lot of Disney films that actually made big debuts, especially back in Walt's time. They had Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then Mary Poppins. Like, it was like they'd have little debuts, but most of those debuts would actually be held at the Disney studio lot. They wouldn't actually have these big Hollywood premieres, but that's kind of fallen by the wayside because now that Disney owns the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, they do a big Hollywood premiere for every single one of their films. Okay, so we're going through, we see those different props, and then we eventually get inside of the waiting area. Now, inside this waiting area, we used to have all of these different previews for different films. Now, this was helping us transport ourselves into what we were about to go into. Much like those posters when you're walking into the train station at the Magic Kingdom or at Disneyland, and you see all the attraction posters there. That is giving you a preview of what's inside the park. Much like that, the Great Movie Ride would give us trailers, and all of the trailers that you find there were the trailers for the things that you would be experiencing along the way. We had things like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Alien, Footlight Parade, Tarzan, all of the classics, Wizard of Oz. There were so many great trailers in that room, and I really, really miss that room. I really do miss that room. You can still go in that room today. That room is now just it's the room where you actually watch the Perfect Picnic, along with the little room where you first start walking in and out. But that's besides the point. So we're going to go into more details about all the different fun finds about the Great Movie Ride after we talk about the Great Movie Ride. Okay, so after that, you would get into the load area for the Great Movie Ride. Now, there's a few different fun facts that I always like to point out to different people in this room when it still existed. Number one, there was an amazing hidden Mickey that was found on the second house over, up on the right-hand side. It was a profile of Mickey looking through the window. It was a great little hidden Mickey. Number two, if you took a look behind you and up, there was some rafters, and on those rafters, there was a picture of a man. Now, that man is going to get a call as soon as we start the attraction, but it was actually a director who went by CB, Cecile something. I can't remember what his real name is right now off the top of my head. But CB was a famous director from old school Hollywood, and to pay tribute to him, and also to have it so in the attraction, the cast members would say, "Ready when you are, CB," and they would be looking at the actual picture of CB. Really, really cool. Okay, without further ado, people, let's take a ride through the Great Movie Ride. I'm going to do my best to try to remember all of the dialogue on this attraction. I could mess up, but I think I should be able to remember. Okay, so welcome aboard, everyone. At this time, I'd like to remind you to remain seated and keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle all the time. Now enough about you. Let's talk about me. My name is Brent, and I love movies, so this is the perfect job for me. Ready when you are, CB. Remember that? And then all of a sudden you hear, "Hooray for Hollywood, ba-da-da-da-da-da, Hollywood." And we would start going through, and we'd have, the big dramatic thing of us going into the thing. And we are rolling. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Great Movie Ride. Once again, my name is Brent, and I'll be taking you from this Hollywood soundstage right into the heart of some of the greatest films that have ever been done. But between you and me, this is no ordinary ride. This is the Great Movie Ride, because this brings everything to life and puts you in the middle of the action. And then we're going to get to our first scene, which would be Footlight Parade. Um, and then they would say something on the lines like, I don't know about you folks, but I just love the old musicals of the 1930s, including this over here, which was it Buster Keaton? No, the Busby Berkeley classic Footlight Parade. And it was starring James Cagney and something I can't remember who the other people were. And then we would look to our left hand side. On the left hand side, we would have Gene Kelly there singing in the rain, and like I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. And there in 1952, we got Gene Kelly singing in the rain. And then they would always point out different fun facts about the scene. They'd be like, oh, there's a few of them that they did. I think the most common one was, did you know that Gene Kelly had a 102-degree temperature when he filmed this scene? Or sometimes they would say, did you know that in this scene they had it so the rain was actually milk? So, oh yeah, there's also, did you know that Gene Kelly co-directed this film? There's a few of them that they went through. Then we would get into the next scene, which would be Mary Poppins, and we'd have them up there, chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim cheree. When you're with a sweep, you're in glad company. And then they would always be like, does anyone know the name of this movie? That's right, it's the 1964 classic Mary Poppins, starring Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. And they would be up there just, chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chimney, away. Then we would enter into the dark alley of the gangster world. And when we got into the gangster world, they'd be like, oh, better hold on to those purses and wallets, folks, right? Purses and wallets? Or wallets and, yeah. But this doesn't seem like a great neighborhood. In fact, it looks a little like the underworld. Seen in great classics like James Cagney's Public Enemy. And then you'd have James Cagney on the right-hand side going, open up, Shane. Open up, Shane. Listen, I don't want to get in there, but if I'm going to come in there, we're going to come in there. Okay, Shane? Okay, it's just a few little fun facts about this room, because now we're going to start pointing out some fun facts while we're going through this thing as well. Number one, when you are first walking in, on the left-hand wall, you can find posters for the president of the time when the Public Enemy would have been in theaters, or not in theaters, but when the film would actually be taking place. And they are for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which, interestingly enough, puts him in very unique company, because he is he is the only president that has ever appeared in 4 Walt Disney World attractions. He has been here at the Great Movie Ride. He has also been found over, obviously, at the Hall of Presidents. Also, pretty obvious, the American Adventure. And then the last one is actually Test Track. So when you're on Test Track and you almost crashed in the car, we talked about this last week, actually. Inside, there is a cardboard cutout of a man with a hula around his neck. That is actually a cutout of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Okay, so while we would go up through, you can start hearing these people like, shh, someone's coming, someone's coming. And then you hear another voice being like, is it them? And then eventually we would get to a person who starts peeking out, and they're like, something like, shut up, you two. They're going to spot us, Shane. I don't know why they keep on saying Shane at the end, but we would come to a stop, and our right-hand side, we would have like a fancy little car. On our left-hand side, we had a human being. Now, everything else is going to be audio-animatronics up until this point, but now we have an actual human there. And then the ride host would say, sorry for the delay, folks, but what is it? Sorry for the delay, folks. Oh, I don't want to run a red light, even if it's just the movie. And then all of a sudden they'd be like, hey, you talking to me? You talking to me? Yeah. No, I'm talking to the person in the third row. Yeah, of course I'm talking to you. Get over here. I'm not supposed to leave my vehicle. I said get over here. Okay, whatever you say, Mugsby. How'd you know my name anyway? I've seen this movie before. And you have this little trash can, and there would be a little there'd be a little cat that's hidden it, and then all of a sudden the car would pull up, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's them. When they would start doing shooting, there's a huge shootout, and then eventually you would have it so the person who was there hijacking your vehicle would actually get on the vehicle with you, and they'd be like, hey kid, look at this. and then he would shoot the red light and go, "No more red light," and you would continue to move forward into the western scene. Now, before we go into the western scene, one of the cool things is on that vehicle on the right hand side, it had a license plate of 050189 as a nod to the year that the Great Movie Ride and Disney's Hollywood Studios actually opened up. Um, so we would get into the old west scene. Now, depending on which ride vehicle you were on, there was two different ride vehicles you get on. You can get on the ride vehicle A or ride vehicle B. If you were in ride vehicle A, you would actually just go through the underground scene. There was like nothing else. You would just continue on into the old west. And then if you're in ride vehicle B, you would obviously stop at this point and go through all the dramatics of what happened with the gangsters, and then you would just go right through the cowboy scene. So if you went through the cowboy scene, you would also get hijacked if you were in vehicle A. Now, in vehicle A, instead of having it so we're going through and getting hijacked by the gangsters, instead we'd be getting hijacked by a cowboy. And this cowboy would go through and he would once again hijack the entire vehicle and he'd be on his way as well. But my favorite part was he had dynamite. He threw the dynamite side of the bank and then the entire thing blew up. It was a lot more theatrical than what we had in the other one. But if you're in the western scene and you don't go through that, this is what happens. You go through, and on our left-hand side, we got Clint Eastwood there. No, I'm sorry. We had John Wayne there on a horse, and John Wayne would go. I always did the impression. Let me see if I can remember exactly what he says. He's there on his horse like this. I don't know if I'd be going that way if I were you. That is, if you want my opinion. And I reckon not many people listen to many folk these days. And then you would continue going. And on the right hand side, you had Clint Eastwood there. And then sometimes the person would be like, "Can anyone name the movie that Clint Eastwood and John Wayne starred in together?" They never did until now. And yeah, that would be if you had the person who hadn't been hijacked yet. Okay, so continuing down, and then the narrator would be something like, "And now the Old West, and two of Hollywood's greatest legends, I was going to say Mark Twain, John Wayne, and Clint Eastwood." And then the gangster, if you're with the gangster, would be like, "Yeah, sleepy little bird, ain't it?" And then all of a sudden, the people would pop up, and they'd be like, "Hey, it's the bank robber!" And then they'd start shooting, and he'd be like, "Hey, I don't even work this neighborhood, copper." And you would continue into the next thing. And the person would be like, "Okay, now this is the perfect time for me to gather up all your goods. Now, first we'll start with the watches and the jewelry, and then we'll work out to the hard stuff." But while you're going through, then all of a sudden you go into another thing and goes, "Wait a minute, what is this anyway?" And then the speaker would be like, "This is Alien. You are aboard the spaceship Nostromo with Sigourney Weaver, and something is on the loose. Danger! Danger!" And then eventually you would see Sigourney Weaver, and she's like this. I think I could just do my calling in life is just to do the imitations of different animatronics around Disney World. Wait, what is it? I could be wait, we got never mind. We'll continue going on. I'm just gonna keep on doing that. Then eventually you got the alien, and the alien starts popping up. It was great watching this alien pop up because it used to scare the bejesus out of my little brother, and it was so funny. He hated it. I used to get scared by it too, but my little brother hated it, absolutely hated it. While you were going through this area on the left-hand side, there were a bunch of different computer screens. On these different computer screens, they had a lot of different things that if you looked at it and you didn't know what you're talking about, you'd be like, "Yeah, okay, just some computer screens." But if you knew what to look for, then hey, guess what? You're in luck. And if you never had the chance to look, I apologize, but here I am to tell you some of the stuff that is there. Over here, we had different things about where the Imagineers were, which is really cool. So it would say things like Imagineer 1, programming the witch. Imagineer 2, witch is broken. Imagineer 3, Raiders of the Lost Ark scene. So we kind of go through and have all these different little details to pay tribute to the different things on the ride and the Imagineers that were actually working the ride. So as we would continue going through this thing, eventually we'd pass through the alien scene and we would get into the Indiana Jones scene. And when we got to the Indiana Jones scene, I can't even think of what was the dialogue in that one. You are with Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark as he discovers an ancient treasure. Something like that. Something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. I don't know. But one of the cool things about this room was on our left-hand side, we had a hidden Mickey along with a hidden Donald in ancient, like, Egyptian hieroglyphics. It was really cool. Also near them, we also had a hidden C-3PO and R2-D2 because there's actually a hidden C-3PO and R2-D2 in the actual Raiders of the Lost Ark film. Now that I say that out loud, I'm like, haha, that probably will be one of my fun find videos on a short sometime in the very near future. What was it? What did they say though? It was like, you are with Harrison Ford. Oh no, something Raiders of the Lost Ark amid 1,000 deadly snakes in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indiana Jones tries to get forbidden. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then Mugsby would be like, snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? And then we would eventually get to an ancient artifact. It was a giant thing, and it was like a giant, like, wolf guy. And there was a person who was hunched over, like so. And Muggsy would stop and be like, whoa, look at that chunk of ice. It was, I don't know if they'd notice a few extra missing bodies around here, if you know what I mean. Ha ha ha. Stay seated as I go get the goods. And then he would start going up, and then you would hear your narrator say something down the lines of, but it has a curse. Anyone who dares touch it will die for it. And you would get up there, and this is still something that I say every single day. So, in order to get to the parks, I have to go on one exit and one exit only. 1 mile of I-4 is all I have to drive on every single day when I go to the parks. But when I go to the parks, okay, this is like so much more information just to get to the one line. In order to go to the parks, I have to take a left and get onto I-4, but there's also people coming from forward, and they can go ahead of me, but they're supposed to yield to the traffic that I'm getting through. Every single day when I'm going through this, if I am not on the phone with someone and I see people start coming, I always say, halt, unbeliever. Disturb the treasures of the gods, and you shall all pay with your lives. And then eventually the person, the Mugsy hits it, or the cowboy hits it, and it spins around, revealing a dead skeleton, and then the person that was up there takes off the stuff and reveals that they were in fact our tour guide the entire time, and they have lived, and everything is a-okay. Yay! Okay, so then we would get to the next room, and they'd be like, ooh, I see dead people. The horror film has been a staple of movies ever since the 1920s, with things like the Mummy, which we debuted back in 1920. If you look to the right and left, there's just a bunch of different skeletons there, and then we got one that used to have Mickey Mouse ears, then he lost his Mickey Mouse ears, then he got his Mickey Mouse ears back, and then he lost his Mickey Mouse ears. That's besides the point. Then eventually we're going to get to the Tarzan room. If you ever got stuck in the Tarzan room, well, I apologize. I got stuck in there one time too for hours. So literally, our family was in there for like hours back in the 1990s, and all you heard was, oh, as Tarzan kept on swinging back and forth. So in this room, we got Jane on top of an elephant, along with Cheetah, the chimpanzee, and then we also have Tarzan just keeps on swinging back and forth over and over and over again. And it says, we are now entering into the jungle, home of one of the greatest, most memorable jungle characters of all time. And no, it's not George the Jungle, it's Tarzan, as portrayed here by Johnny Weissmuller. And then, we had Maureen O'Sullivan here as Jane, and then Cheetah as herself. We would eventually make our way into the next room, which would be not the Great Movie Ride. We're in the Great Movie Ride. It would be the Casablanca scene. And while we got into the Casablanca scene, you would have Humphrey Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman there, and like, Louis, I feel like this is the start of a beautiful friendship. Best last line of a movie ever. Now, a few different things that I want to point out here is number one, if you take a look at the plane, you can only see the front part of the plane. The back part of the plane, it's just off stage, so you can't really see it. However, the back part of the plane is actually found still to this day in Walt Disney World. If you've ever been on the Jungle Cruise, the world famous Jungle Cruise found over in the Magic Kingdom, you have it so they go through and talk about the, it's pretty plain. Or some people ask how I landed my job here at the Jungle Cruise. It's plain to see. I took a crash course. If you take a look at the back part of that plane, you can actually find the numbers 050189 as a nod to May 1st, 1989, when the not when the Jungle Cruise, when the Great Movie Ride opened up, because this plane was cut into two, and part of it was put over here at the Jungle Cruise, while the rest of it would be found over here in the Great Movie Ride. Eventually, we get into our next room, which was our only animated room, and we would have Mickey Mouse there on the wall, and there would be kind of like an oval thing, and they would say, and here's one of our most famous movie stars, Mickey Mouse, as the Sorcerer's Apprentice in the movie Fantasia. Did you know that the sorcerer in this movie is named Yensid, which is Disney, spelled backwards? So we go through that, but I am here to point out some fun facts in this room as well. So if the room looks kind of like a tornado, well, it should. So the reason it looks like a tornado is because originally the animators, or I'm sorry, not the animators, the Imagineers had it so there was going to be 3 show scenes for The Wizard of Oz. There was going to be a tornado scene, which is going to be this room. That's also why it's so super windy in there. And then you would get to the next scene, which is going to be The Wizard of Oz, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes here. And then we get to the third scene, which is going to be following the Yellow Brick Road. Yet again, another Wizard of Oz scene. 2 of the scenes remained in the attraction, and the third one, they said, you know what, that's just too much Wizard of Oz. Maybe we'll get rid of one of the scenes. So they got rid of the tornado scene, and they replaced it with the Sorcerer's Apprentice scene that we can find here still to this very day. So, little fun fact that most people didn't know. If you actually looked at the ground leading into it too, there was like a little bit of like spots where the Yellow Brick Road actually would have been. So then we get into the next room, which is going to be our Wizard of Oz scene. On the right-hand side, you can find a house. Underneath the house, you can find some legs sticking out of it. These are, of course, the legs of the Wicked Witch that died and had the house dropped on her. She's probably just going about her day, having a grand old time. Just, like, hey, I'm going to hang out with the Munchkins today, and guess what? A house drops on you. I'd be pretty mad, too. I don't blame her sister for being so upset, for having it so they drop a house on her sister, and then she steals the ruby slippers. That's just ridiculous. But anyways, that's completely besides the point. Then they would say, Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Now we're in one of the most beloved movies of all time, The Wizard of Oz. And then we get up to the Wicked Witch. At this point, when the Great Movie Ride and Disney's Hollywood Studios, or Disney MGM Studios, opened up, the Wicked Witch of the West was the most advanced animatronic of all time at that point. There is never a more advanced animatronic than the Wicked Witch. And she'd go, who killed my sister? Who killed her? Who killed the Witch of the East? Was it you? No, I didn't kill anyone. It was an accident. Well, my pretty, I can also cause accidents too. Well, rubbish, you have no power here. But be gone before someone drops a house on you too. Very well. I could really just, that's going to be my new calling in life, is to go through and just do different imitations of the animatronics. And then the Wicked Witch of the East would just disappear, and then your tour guide would be like, huh, wonder how we get out of here. And then the Munchkins would say, follow the Yellow Brick Road. 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 And you go, why did I think of that? And you continue on, and then we would get to the scene where we have Dorothy, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and who's the last one? The Scarecrow. The 4 of them would be there, and Dorothy would be saying, oh, it's even more beautiful than I dreamed. Toto, we're almost home. We're almost home. Now, let's point out yet another fun fact here, because every single character that we have seen from Footlight Parade all the way up until this very second has been actual audio from the movie. So if you would go through and listen to Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman from Casablanca, that was actually pulled clips from the movie. Those are actual sound bites from the film. If you went into Tarzan, that was Tarzan screaming from the movie. Every single character from start to finish would be the actual audio from the movie, except for Judy Garland saying, "Look, Toto, we're almost there. We're almost there." This would actually be voiced by Eliza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter. So she wanted to pay tribute for her mother and asked if she could actually do the audio for Dorothy in this scene. So the only thing that was not pulled from a movie with audio would actually be this one, which would actually be Eliza Minnelli instead. Then we would get to there and they would say, well, thanks for joining us on this tour. Now, we've got a lot more movies to watch. Here's a few of my favorites. And then we'd have like the coolest montage of movies, and they would go through, and it's one of the main reasons why I ever wanted to watch Gone with the Wind, because I love the scene where they have the Gone with the music, the do 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 do, and I love that soundtrack so much. And because of that, I bought the DVD for Gone with the Wind. I think I watched it one time because it's such a long movie, but I still like the soundtrack a lot. The movie's pretty good too, but the soundtrack was really good. And then at the end, they would go through and they would wrap it up and kick you out of the ride vehicle forever eventually. And that would be the Great Movie Ride. Great Movie Ride, amazing attraction. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Brent shouldn't get a drink of water. Yes, I should. And now you're thinking, are there any references to the Great Movie Ride that are still around to this day? Wrong term. Yes, there is. So there's still a few different little details that you can find about the Great Movie Ride that are still found in the attraction to this day, which is now Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Number one, while you're going through the queue is going to be the exact same queue up until you get to the area where you get to the pre-show area. Everything up until that is the exact same. So nothing's been changed in there, with the exception of the lines are a little bit different. You no longer go around movie props, but instead you just go through and you see movie posters for the Mickey Mouse cartoons along the wall. Eventually, when we get into the attraction, we've got a few different references. There's actually going to be 3 different references to it. By the way, while we're going through here, if you guys have any questions about Great Movie Ride, start throwing those in the comments now, because after we go through this, then we're just going to go to your questions. So start thinking and start typing. Okay, so number 1, when you were in the carnival scene, if you take a look to the left-hand side of Donald, your left, his right, you can find a poster for the Great Moving Ride. What? So the Great Moving Ride is a giant escalator just going up into the middle of nowhere. That is a reference to, obviously, the Great Movie Ride. So the Great Movie Ride has become the Great Moving Ride in carnival form. Next one is a tornado. So we obviously have the tornado in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, like we talked about in the original storyline for the Great Movie Ride. There was going to be the tornado scene from the Wizard of Oz. However, that tornado scene from Wizard of Oz kind of made its place finally inside of the attraction, even though it's in a different attraction. But if you look at the tornado, it's spinning around in circles, and there's lots of different things that are nods to different Mickey Mouse short cartoons on there. But there's one that is not from a Mickey Mouse cartoon at all, but it's actually a nod to the Wizard of Oz, more specifically to the Great Movie Ride Wizard of Oz scene. If you look, there is one mailbox that is flying around, and that mailbox has the address of Home Sweet Home. Because, no, there's no place like home, is what it says. No place like home, as a nod to Wizard of Oz with, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. Toto. As we continue going through, we have one bit of audio that can still be found on the attraction from the Great Movie Ride. So if you go from start to finish of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, everything in that attraction was created specifically for the attraction. All the audio was created specifically for the attraction, with the exception of a few different things there. They do have it so one line that Mickey says is a Walt Disney recording, to have Walt Disney as one of the people who's actually in the attraction. also have the same thing with Clarence Ducky Nash, aka the original voice of Donald Duck. But when you were exiting Daisy's dance studio, and right before you get into the incinerator, you go through, and on the left-hand side, there is a shop for the Brave Little Tailor shop, and then there is a trash can outside of it. When you pass that trash can, not every single car, but I think it's every other car. I think it's the first and the third, or maybe it's the second and the fourth. When you pass by that trash can, it wobbles, and you hear, wow! You hear a cat screaming. This is going to be the exact same cat screaming that was originally found over in the Great Movie Ride in the gangster scene. So if the audio sounds familiar, it should sound familiar because it's the actual audio that you once heard over at the gangster scene of the Great Movie Ride. And that, my friends, is our walkthrough of the Great Movie Ride. I'm kind of shocked that I still remember most of the thing. It's been, how long has it been? Let's take a look here. When did the Great Movie Ride close? It was August something. August 13th of 2017. So it's been 8 years, almost the day, since we were able to ride that attraction. All right, we're going to give you guys a minute or here, two here, to go through and answer or ask any questions that you guys may have. I vividly remember the last day. So the last day, Alex in the chat room and Ashley in the chat room. Alex, did you, you joined me at Great Movie Ride in the morning too. We rode Great Movie Ride a few times, and then we ran over to Ellen's Energy Adventure, which also closed the same day. And we rode Ellen's Energy Adventure 2 times, and then we waited for the third and final time, the final ride ever. We got evacuated on the final one, and then after we were evacuated, we made our way back over to the Great Movie Ride, and we rode the Great Movie Ride one final time. So overall, it was a fun day. It was also a heartbreaking day because, it was the Great Movie Ride. I love the Great Movie Ride. I really love the Great Movie Ride. If I had to go through and choose an attraction to bring back from the dead, the Great Movie Ride would be one of the top ones that I would have to bring back. I would bring back Wishes, 100%. I would bring back. I know I'm one of the few people who would do it, but I would love to bring back Cranium Command. I loved Cranium Command. That was one of my favorite attractions of all time. These were the hardest closings for me, along with the Osborne Family Special Dance Lit. So if I had to go through, and figure out what the top saddest days of Disney closures were for me, number one was Wishes. I was just so emotionally attached to Wishes. I'm still like, someone posted a video that I'm friends with not that long ago. Their cast member, they went to their service industry. They get a service industry when they had 10 years and 15, 20, 25, etc. And they have a special fireworks for that. And they showed a video of their fireworks, and part of the fireworks were Wishes. And I was sitting here and just was like, I was not expecting that. After Wishes, number 2 is Osborne Family Special Dancing Lights. That was the second hardest. Then I think number 3 might have been the Great Movie Ride, but it also might have been a recent one. Tom Sawyer Island was really tough. Tom Sawyer Island was tough. The Chester and Hester's, that was really tough for me too. I don't know. I get really attached to these things. I get very excited about what's to come, but at the same time, I do not like watching these closings of things. I wish things could just stay forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Okay, we got we got one question in the audience. If you guys have any questions, throw them out there as well. If you could have 2 props from the Great Movie Ride, what would you pick? I would pick the broom that the witch is holding, because I don't have a broom. No, I think I would take the broom, because the broom was pretty iconic. I'm trying to think of like what the most iconic items were inside of the Great Movie Ride. Gene Kelly's umbrella would be cool too, from Singing in the Rain. I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. I think I don't know. I feel like I want the broom, which is weird, but I think I want the broom. And then number two, I think I would like. What would I like from the Great Movie Ride? The ruby that they grab that switches things over. I think that would be the coolest. Can you line up some of the room from Great Movie Ride to Runaway Railway? Okay, so when you are first entering, okay, we can do this. When you are first entering into Great Movie Ride, or okay, well let's do Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and you do the first turn, and you got Mickey and Minnie in the car on the right hand side. Bam, bam, bam. Where are you going, Goof? Oh, I'm gonna go see my friends. Oh, we're gonna see it. We're gonna take a perfect picnic. That is going past Footlight Parade slash Footlight Parade, Sing in the Rain, and Mary Poppins. And then the next room, you go through the sun room or the desert room. That's gangster scene. And then you take a left, and when you are in the carnival scene, you are inside of the Old West. I'm just going through in my head, so I apologize that I'm like looking off in the distance here. When you go into both the, I'm trying to think how this was. Yeah, okay. Both the tornado scene slash part, but not all of it, part of um, part of the room with the volcano, you are going through the this is alien scene, and then when you're on the other part of that room, you are going through the portion of the Ark of the Covenant, and then when you're going through the little alleyway before you get to the city, that is going to be the spot with the Holt unbelievers disturb the treasures of the gods, and you shall all pay with your lives. Um, and then the next scene is kind of weird because it does a different path than what it originally did. But when you're in the city scene and you start to spin around, right? Yeah. So the city scene to the other scene, the ballet scene, you are in the mummy room slash Tarzan room slash at the end of it. Trying to figure out how this goes. Tarzan, and then great movie. Oh no, Casablanca is when you're going through the alley, and then Wizard of Oz is roughly right. Yeah, it would be roughly the boiler room, and then the big finale room would be where you are in. Nothing can stop us now. That's it. Okay, and then you get to the corner. Yes. Okay. So we have it. It's not the exact same turns and stuff. There's a few different parts that are a little wider in this one. Like they've used multiple sections to fill in one room. Okay, but I think that's going to be wrapping up our episode tonight. As I keep steering up in the distance, I'm like walking through the ride in my head. All right, but thank you everyone out there for joining us once again this week. Please keep on spreading the word about the Wednesday show and from Screen a Theme, and invite anyone and everyone to join the groups over on Facebook or to subscribe here on YouTube as well. As always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Until next time, have a great week, everybody. Bye bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Bye bye now. Goodbye. Bye bye. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I can't stand this kind of print.